Hello, everyone. And now we have a talk by Johannes Bechberger. I hope I pronounced it right. He's a JVM developer working on profiles and the underlying technology. He currently works on the GAP, profiling documentations, malware utilities, and the Firefox Profiler. He's going to have a talk on Firefox Profilers beyond the web, using Firefox Profiler to view Java profiling data. And yes?
Yeah. Thanks for the kind introduction. Yes, I'm Johannes Bechberger, working at the submachine team at SAP. We create the best JDK, so just download it. But I'm here because I worked on the Firefox Profiler in the recent months. I'm going to start now because when I'm telling people that I'm working at SAP at Firefox Profiler, they first ask me two questions. Like, first, wait, SAP does open source? Yes, SAP does open source, and quite a lot. For example, here at Submachine, at my team, we're working on the OpenJDK. For example, if you've ever used JDK 17, we have the JDK 17 maintainer in our team. So we do many nice projects in this field. SAP also works with the Eclipse Foundation or other parts. So yeah, we're doing quite a bit of open source. But how did I end up here talking to you in this Mozilla dev room as a JDK developer, which normally doesn't happen? So I had a problem. I had a project on debugging last year. So what I wanted to do essentially is that I had on the one hand my IDE and on the other hand the JVM. I wanted to improve the protocol in between. So I had then some test cases, and some of these did some integration testings. For example, here they parsed some program and I don't know, did something with it, and I wanted to see why it was slower than I expected. And so what I wanted to do is just right-click on my IDE, tell it that, hey, profile it, and show me the profile, and that's all. And I want to do it with open source because I like open source and that our team open source is really key. So I didn't find anything, but I found some tools that got into this direction. So essentially there were tools that produced some flame graphs as the UI. And Mario Fusco said a few days back, I love flame graphs. When you do something stupid, it punches you in your face, and it's impossible not to see it. So that's great. You can use flame graphs for a lot of things, but sometimes they are not enough. So when you regard visualizations, you have those easy tools that are easy to use, but don't have that many features. And on the other hand, you have the big tool. It's called JMC that has lots of features, but has a quite steep learning curve. So I had to write my own because I wanted to have something with more visualizations than just flame graphs, but that was usable, also usable to the end user. And not just the OpenJDK developer like JMC is, quite frankly. And I wanted to just right-click on a method, on the test method, and just tell my IDE, hey, run the thing. So I don't end up writing so much code and boilerplate. So writing your own IntelliJ plugin, and that's the IDE I'm targeting, but it's quite the same for other IDEs too, like Visual Studio Code. It's quite simple. You can just download some templates and work on them. So this I did in August in half a week, but then it came to visualization options. So I looked around and thought, maybe creating my own visualizations like flame graphs and so on, but this turned out to be cumbersome and really would take a lot of work. So I looked around for web-based visualizations because you can just embed a web-based profiling view into your IDE because, for example, in IntelliJ you have a Chromium, an embedded Chromium, and in VS Code it's essentially a browser anyway, so that's no problem. I found Speedscope, which is quite nice, but the problem is it doesn't show anything other than stack traces and some profile timing information, and I wanted to show more. There is kind of an existing plugin for IntelliJ, but that only shows flame graphs, and so we're back to step one. And then I found Firefox Profiler, and this is how I ended up here. So essentially, Firefox Profiler is this large application that you've probably seen in some other talks today too. This is actually taken from a previous talk, because I was too lazy to run Firefox Profiler. Directly, you see here, it's like it does everything, and it's quite cool. And one of the many advantages is that it's developed by a small team that answer even stupid questions in a matrix channel, so check it out if you have some questions. And they were open to working with me on my project, and also it's backed by a corporation, it's backed by Mozilla, which is quite cool because it's not a one-man project like other tools are. And so what did I do to integrate it, and what might you do if you want to also use Firefox Profiler? It essentially boils down to creating a converter that to my data format, it's the JFR file format, to the Firefox Profiler format. And then you put it in the server because Firefox Profiler likes it when you can just say, take this file from a URL, or you put it in the server, that's fine. For me, I created the Java Lin server. Then you can just wrap it in IntelliJ plugin or VS Code plugin or so on. And then I took the Firefox Profiler UI. You can use profile.firefox.com, but you would typically just host it your own because then it works in demos like Bowley today when I have time, and you can control all the changes that come into your Firefox Profiler UI, and also you can use a modified version, which I did to put all my pull requests that are still out there and not merged into one version. So the things you later see that are in my tool are sometimes not yet in the mainstream Firefox Profiler. So shortly to the file format. So file format is quite simple. It's just a JSON file. And this is zipped, and it has some metadata information like the name, the interval, some settings, and then you have the thread information. So for every thread, you have a separate section in the profile file, and you have a list of samples there, and this list contains essentially the time of when the sample is taken, the stack, and the CPU delta, that's the elapsed CPU time since the last sample, so it can be used to show the CPU usage data. Then the stack is not really the stack, but it's an index into the stack array, and this contains a list of stacks, and where the stack is just a frame, a pointer to the previous stack, like the top frame and then the previous stack, so it points back, and then the category, and of course the frame is an index into the frame area, and that contains the function line, so what you need for a frame. And then, of course, function is not really the function, but it's an index into the functions area, and you get the point here because name and file are, of course, not strings, but they are indexes into the string table. That's quite hard to debug sometimes. And I had many struggles with it, but it's quite performant and it's easy for the front end to see. So after I explained you how I did it, here's the plugin. I call it Java JFR Profiling plugin. You can find it in the JetBrains Marketplace and on GitHub. It's open source. It's MIT licensed, I believe. And it works because JFR was open sourced with JDK 11, so it's all open source. Just try it out. So how can you get it? Just open your IDE and go into the plugin install view and type in Java JFR Profiler, and you get it. Then you get some nice buttons when you right-click. And you can just click on the button Profile with JFR, then you profile it, and then here that's a simple example application that just computes kind of complicated a Fibonacci number or something like that. And then you can see that it executes the program with like some JFR related options to profile it. And then it opens automatically the profile.jfr file. You get a call tree. You can also look at how every frame is like executed, whether it's in interpreted mode or JIT compiled. Then you can double click and jump back to the IDE. So it has basic IDE integrations, and you can shift double click and see the source view that was presented in the previous talk shortly. So you can see here that in this code, the recursive call is called is found the most time in the static calls. And then you can have a function table which lists all the methods combined. So from all the stack traces, and you see what method is used the most. That's not yet in the mainline Firefox Profiler. You can have some flame graphs, and you can have some nice tooltips, and you can get some information on the profile. You can even upload it like a normal Firefox profile, so you can use these so you can share these profiles and view them in a normal profile.firefox.com, just with some few features. And then we can also open any JFR file, and JFR is like the default, like the de facto standard for profiling files in Java. And you can see here that we get also some graphs that show us the CPU load and give us some summary on GC, like how much memory it requested. And what's also cool, we can not only see timing, but we can also see a call tree for other things, like for Java error, for thread starts, where did they happen, or for object allocation. And when we get to Java error, we see that this code uses creates error every time, like probably the parsing fails. And so we can also see, as the last part, the marker chart, so we can get all the events that the JVM emits. So for example, we see here at the top that we had a drop in memory that the heap was large, and we investigated. We could zoom in and see, okay, that's probably because here GC happened, and this GC took like 10 milliseconds. This is quite nice because you can then investigate, have the call tree as a simple thing, and then later drop in and go deep dive into the data. And if you know Async Profiler, it also supports Async Profiler. And also when you want to create a profile, you can decide whether you want JFR, the built-in for the JDK, or Async Profiler. And that's all, but I think I still have some time. So I hope this works. Because I can tell you a lot that it might work, and can show you some screens, but here is the actual hopefully working prototype. So just right click on the main method, tell it profile with JFR, and then it tells you, hey, I profiled it. Then it opens the profile, and then you can just look at it, zoom around, zoom around and see that you have to select the main thread. You can jump back to the source code. You can shift, double click, and everything. And the cool thing is you can even open, as I showed you, arbitrary JFR files. They shouldn't be too large because then my program runs out of memory sometimes. It's still a prototype, so try it if you want. I would be happy to have any feedback. Go to the GitHub issue pages. And eventually you find this plugin, as I said, in the JetBrains Marketplace. You find me on Mastodon, on Twitter, and on GitHub, where you also find the sub-project, so you can use parts of this project, like only the converter and only the JFR to Firefox Profiler server. you find more information on my tool and also background information to this talk in 2 blog posts on my blog. And you can find the Submachine team at Sweet Submachine at Twitter and find out about our great projects at Submachine.io. That's for me. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And we have quite a bit of time for questions, so.
Thank you. Have you received any feedback from users about this tool, like some colleagues or?
Yes, good questions. Yeah, I received quite some feedback on Twitter. They were quite happy. I did some internal. I showed it internally at SAP to some colleagues, and they were quite happy. I also showed it to friends of mine that also said that it was quite great. It still has, of course, problems because it's a prototype. It not everything might work, but yeah, I'm looking forward. So just give it a try. It's free. It's open source. Open some issues on GitHub if you like. So yeah.
I will steal the mic. Did you had to forward some patches upstream to make it work in the Firefox?
Yes, a lot. So for example, no.
Because you mean they have bugs, or you needed to adjust it for Java?
There, for example, this feature here is like not yet in master, but for example, what I added was you saw this here, the listing of the categories. This is something that I added, and I added pull requests for the function table, which is not yet in because it's far more work. I added some resizing and sorting that's I think in. So I added some pull requests that are in, but not all of them. But I hope I get it in the next few months.
You can give beers to the upstream developers that are here to get the patch.
But I fixed also bugs that they wanted to be fixed. So I think we're working more like colleagues.
I will ask a follow-up question quickly. Did you have to do anything Java specific in that case?
There's nothing that is really Java specific. So only the converter is like Java specific because it takes Java data and processes it, but anything else in the UI is generic.
Yeah, I was wondering if this could be useful to profile like Java applications that run native code and the other way around, and how would that work? Thinking of like, for example, Firefox for Android, I don't think we have a lot of like insight into the performance of our Java code, and that would be useful to have.
To summarize it, where they can like work with JNI or something like that, I think Async Profiler is a quite nice profiler that I also support, and this gives you information on native on native traces. And I'm working on getting a profiling API into OpenJDK that improves this a lot. But if you want to know more about the struggles, come tomorrow to my talk in the FUJ room. There you hear enough about this topic.
Hi. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Very impressive. The question I had, actually I have 2 questions. The first one is, what's it about Firefox Profiler that made you choose it, I suppose? And then the second question is, could you see the potential for maybe a tool like this to sort of like actually have a web-based editor?
Yes, the first question, why did I choose it? Because it's a nice project and I didn't want to write everything on my own, and it contained lots of the features that I already wanted. So yeah, and I could ask questions, because the problem when you're working like alone on such a prototype is that you don't get any feedback. Here I got a lot of feedback on pull requests. And it was a quite good learning experience. And the other thing is, as I said, the project consists only of a tiny IntelliJ wrapper around the other code, and this can be used to just integrate it into your Spring Web app to directly show it in the web. I have some ideas on this. Just follow my blog to know more about this, or my Twitter almost.
What do you think about the upload local profile? Is this an important feature in your opinion? Is it something that is it part of the features that made you choose Firefox Profiler?
Yeah, it's quite a great feature because you can essentially, in open source, you could later then just tell other people, hi, I have some performance issue here. For example, for issues. Essentially the same thing Mozilla does. And I hope I can open it to use it in a corporate setting. For example, adding features to use Microsoft drives for it, so it's more safe, because currently you're uploading it into the web, and that's not that great when you're doing internal company stuff. But this feature then could really make it easy for people to just say, hey, here I have some problem, give me your stack trace, just upload it, and you're fine.
So maybe next feature could be a server and make it configurable.
The problem is it's just me currently working on it, and so it's just a prototype. I have to see what could be implemented in the future.
Any other questions? We still have 3 minutes, so if you have questions, we can take them. Right, you can take them. No? Well then, thank you very much. Do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, just try it out. I would like to have some users, because I want to know what features are important to you, and also where you find some problems. For example, someone found that the Microsoft support wasn't there, so on Microsoft it just crashed. On Windows. So if you find any issues, please drop by and come to the Matrix channel for the of the Firefox profile. There you can find me sitting around all day, and can also answer questions directly on it.
Thank you very much.